A woman meets a man in a bar. They talk, they laugh, and really hit it off. Before long, they decide to go back to his place. As he shows her around his apartment, she notices something unusual in his bedroom. An entire wall covered in soft, cuddly teddy bears. There are 3 long shelves filled from end to end. The bottom shelf is lined with small teddy bears. The middle shelf holds medium-sized bears. And the top shelf is packed with huge, oversized teddy bears. She can tell he spent a lot of time arranging them just right. For such a masculine-looking guy, the display surprises her, but she also finds it sweet and endearing. She doesn't say anything, but she's impressed by his sensitive side. They share a bottle of wine and talk for hours, and the more they talk, the more she thinks, "Oh my, this man might actually be the one. He could even be the father of my future children." They start kissing. The chemistry is strong. Soon he sweeps her into his arms and carries her to the bedroom. After an intense night of passion, they lie together, catching their breath. She gently strokes his chest, smiles, and asks softly, "Well, how was it?" He smiles back, brushes her cheek, looks lovingly into her eyes and says, "Help yourself to any prize." From the middle shelf. A fellow goes for a job interview with the local city council. The interviewer asks, "Are you allergic to anything?" "Yes," the man replies. "Caffeine." "All right. Are you disabled in any way?" The interviewer continues. "Well," the man says nervously, "I served in the army and was injured in an explosion. It blew my, testicles off." The interviewer nods sympathetically. "I see. Well, you're hired. Congratulations. Your hours will be 8 to 3, but you can come in at 10. 10? The man asks, puzzled. "Why so late?" The interviewer smiles and says, "Well, this is a government job. For the first 2 hours, everyone just drinks coffee and stands around scratching, well, let's just say parts you don't have. So there's really no point in you coming in early." After I retired, I still wanted to stay active, so I got myself a nice little part-time job as a Walmart greeter. I lasted less than 1 day. About 2 hours into my first shift, a very loud, cranky woman stormed through the doors with 2 kids in tow, yelling at them the whole way in. As I'd been trained, I put on my best smile and said, "Good morning. Welcome to Walmart." Then I added, "Those are some nice kids you've got there. Are they twins?" She stopped yelling just long enough to bark. "Twins? Are you crazy? The older one's 9, the younger one's 7. Why would you think they're twins? You blind or just plain dumb?" I smiled and said, "No ma'am, not blind and not dumb. I just couldn't believe anyone would sleep with you twice." Then I cheerfully added, "Have a great day, and thanks for shopping at Walmart." My supervisor later informed me that I might not be cut out for this line of work. A wealthy businessman was admitted to St. Vincent's Hospital for heart surgery. Because he had a very rare blood type, the doctors had to search far and wide to find a matching donor. Eventually, they found a Scotsman with the same blood type. The Scotsman happily donated his blood. After the surgery, the grateful businessman sent him a brand new BMW, a handful of diamonds, and a stack of US dollars. A few days later, the businessman needed a second corrective surgery. The doctor called the Scotsman, who again agreed to donate without hesitation. After the second surgery, the businessman sent only a thank you card and a jar of candies. The Scotsman was stunned. He phoned the businessman and said, "After the first donation you gave me a BMW, diamonds, and money. And now all I get is a card and some sweets?" The businessman replied, "Aye, but you must understand. I now have Scottish blood in me." A philosophy professor stood before his class with a few items on the table. When class began, he silently picked up a very large, empty mayonnaise jar and filled it with 2-inch rocks. He asked the students, "Is the jar full?" They agreed it was. Then the professor poured a box of pebbles into the jar. He shook it lightly, and the pebbles rolled into the open spaces between the rocks. "Full now?" he asked. The students agreed again. Next, he poured a box of sand into the jar. The sand filled in everything else. "Full now?" A unanimous yes. Then he reached under the table, pulled out 2 cans of beer, and poured both into the jar, filling the spaces the sand couldn't reach. The students burst out laughing. When the laughter settled, the professor said, "This jar represents your life. The rocks are the important things: your family, your partner, your health, your children. If everything else was lost and only they remained, your life would still be full. The pebbles are the other things that matter: your job, house, and car. The sand is everything else, the small stuff. If you put the sand in first, there's no room for the pebbles or the rocks." He continued, "Spend your time on the things that truly matter. Play with your kids. Take care of your health. Spend time with your partner. There will always be time for chores and errands. Take care of the rocks first. The rest is just sand." A student raised her hand. "What does the beer represent?" The professor smiled. "It shows that no matter how full your life seems, there's always room for a couple of beers with a friend." A lawyer and a senior citizen are sitting next to each other on a long flight. The lawyer thinks to himself, "Seniors are so easy to fool. I'll make a quick buck." He turns to the older man and says, "Let's play a game. I'll ask you a question. If you don't know the answer, you pay me $5. Then you ask me a question. If I don't know the answer, I'll pay you $500. The senior just wants to nap, but to keep the lawyer quiet, he agrees. The lawyer starts. "What's the distance from the Earth to the Moon?" The senior silently hands him $5. Then the senior asks his question. "What goes up a hill with 3 legs and comes down with 4? The lawyer is baffled. He searches his laptop, emails friends, Googles everything possible, but finds nothing. After an hour, he finally gives up. He wakes the senior and hands him $500. The senior pockets the money and goes right back to sleep. But the lawyer can't stand it. He shakes the senior awake and says, "Okay, what goes up a hill with 3 legs and comes down with 4? The senior reaches into his pocket, hands the lawyer another $5, and goes right back to sleep. 3 women die together in an accident and go to heaven. When they get there, St. Peter says, "We only have one rule here in heaven: don't step on the ducks." So they enter heaven, and sure enough, there are ducks all over the place. It is almost impossible not to step on a duck, and although they try their best to avoid them, the first woman accidentally steps on one. Along comes St. Peter with the ugliest man he ever saw. St. Peter chains them together and says, "Your punishment for stepping on a duck is to spend eternity chained to this ugly man." The next day, the second woman accidentally steps on a duck, and along comes St. Peter, who doesn't miss a thing. With him is another extremely ugly man. He chains them together with the same admonishment as for the first woman. The third woman has observed all this and, not wanting to be chained for all eternity to an ugly man, is very, very careful where she steps. She manages to go months without stepping on any ducks, but one day St. Peter comes up to her with the most handsome man she has ever laid eyes on, very tall, long eyelashes, muscular, and thin. St. Peter chains them together without saying a word. The happy woman says, "I wonder what I did to deserve being chained to you for all of eternity." The guy says, "I don't know about you, but I stepped on a duck." A Mexican man who spoke no English went into a department store to buy socks. He found his way to the menswear department, where a young lady offered to help him. "Quiero calcetines," said the man. "I don't speak Spanish, but we have some very nice suits over here," said the salesgirl. No quiero trajes. Quiero calcetines," said the man. "Well, these shirts are on sale this week," declared the salesgirl. No quiero camisas. Quiero calcetines," repeated the man. "I still don't know what you're trying to say." We have some fine pants on this rack, offered the salesgirl. No quiero pantalones. Quiero calcetines, insisted the man. These sweaters are top quality, the salesgirl probed. No quiero suéter. Quiero calcetines, said the man. Our undershirts are over here, fumbled the salesgirl, beginning to lose patience. No quiero camisetas. Quiero calcetines, the man repeated. As they passed the underwear counter, the man spotted a display of socks and happily grabbed a pair. Holding them up, he proclaimed, "Socks! Why didn't you just spell it in the first place?" yelled the salesgirl. Grandpa, a Corvette, and one excuse the cop never saw coming. An older gentleman had just picked up his brand new Corvette convertible. Feeling young again, he decided to take it out for a proper spin. Before long, he was flying down the highway 80, 90, pushing it past 100 miles per hour, wind rushing through what little hair he had left. He was having the time of his life. Then suddenly, flashing lights in the mirror. A state trooper was right behind him. Instead of slowing down, he panicked and sped up even more, 110, 120 miles per hour. Then it hit him. What am I doing? I'm a grandfather, not in a high-speed chase. He eased off the gas and pulled over. The trooper walked up, looked at him, and said, "Sir, it's Friday, and I'm about to finish my shift. If you can give me one reason I've never heard before for speeding like that, I'll let you off with just a warning." The old man smiled and said, "Well, officer, years ago, my wife ran off with a state trooper, and I thought you were bringing her back." The trooper paused, then burst out laughing. "All right, sir, you have yourself a great day. And slow it down." I'm getting older, and I've realized something. I still have way too many unanswered questions in life. Like, who actually let the dogs out? Where is the beef? And how do you really get to Sesame Street? Why doesn't Dora just use GPS? And honestly, how does she even get a t-shirt over that head? And why are eggs packed in flimsy cartons, but batteries are sealed up like they're guarding national secrets? Why can't women put on mascara without opening their mouths? And why is the word, abbreviation, so incredibly long? How is it that lemon juice can be artificial, but dish soap is made with real lemons? And seriously, why sterilize a needle for a lethal injection? And explain this, why do we put our 2 cents in? But it's only a penny for your thoughts. Who's keeping the extra penny? Also, why do the alphabet song and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star have the exact same tune? Be honest, you just sang them both, didn't you? And one last thing, what is Victoria's Secret anyway? A woman was absolutely fed up. Her husband kept coming home late night after night. So, she decided to make a point. She left a note on the dresser that read, "I've had enough. I've left you. Don't bother trying to find me." Then she hid under the bed, waiting to see how he'd react. Not long after, he walked in. She heard his footsteps stop by the dresser, silence, then the sound of a pen. Moments later, he was on the phone. "She's gone." "Yep, finally. I'll head over now. Put on that French lingerie that drives me wild. Love you, can't wait." He hangs up, grabs his keys, and heads out the door. She's destroyed, hardly holding back a flood of tears as she hears his car drive away. Angry and heartbroken, she crawls out from under the bed and snatches the note. Under her message, he had written, "I can see your feet. We're out of bread, back in 5 minutes. I was in Walmart today and ended up behind a grandfather with his very loud, very impatient grandson. The kid was demanding candy, cookies, you name it, and making quite the scene. Through it all, the granddad stayed calm, softly saying, "Easy now, Ethan, we'll be done soon, buddy." A few minutes later, another meltdown. "Hang in there, Ethan, just a little longer," he said, still cool as ever. By the checkout, the kid was tossing things out of the cart, but the granddad didn't raise his voice once. "All right, Ethan, relax now, we're almost out of here," he said gently. I was honestly impressed, so I followed them out to the parking lot and said, "Sir, I just wanted to say you handled that amazingly. Staying that calm with little Ethan, that takes patience. He's lucky to have you." The granddad smiled and said, "Thanks, but I'm Ethan. That little bastard's name is Tyler." Our teacher asked what my favorite animal was, and I said, "Fried chicken." She said I wasn't funny, but she couldn't have been right, because everyone else laughed. My parents told me to always tell the truth. I did. Fried chicken is my favorite animal. I told my dad what happened, and he said my teacher was probably a member of PETA. He said they love animals, very much. I do too. Especially chicken, pork, and beef. Anyway, my teacher sent me to the principal's office. I told him what happened, and he laughed too. Then he told me not to do it again. The next day in class, my teacher asked me what my favorite live animal was. I told her it was chicken. She asked me why, so I told her it was because you could make them into fried chicken. She sent me back to the principal's office. He laughed and told me not to do it again. I don't understand. My parents taught me to be honest, but my teacher doesn't like it when I am. Today, my teacher asked me to tell her what famous person I admired most. I told her, Colonel Sanders. Guess where I am now? A man with a bucket containing 3 large live fish was leaving Galveston Beach when he was stopped by a game warden. The warden asked the man, "Do you have a license to catch those fish?" The man replied to the game warden, "No, sir. These are my pet fish." "Pet fish?" "Yes, sir. Every night I take these fish down to this beach and let them swim around for about a half hour. When I whistle, they all come back, jump back into my buckets, and I take them home. We do this every night." "That's a bunch of hooey," said the warden. "Fish can't do that." "No, really," says the man. "Here, I'll show you." And he releases the fish in the ocean. "Well, I've got to see this," the game warden replied. The man and the warden stood and waited. After several minutes, the game warden turned to the man and said, Well, what?" the man asked. "When are you going to call them back?" The game warden huffs. "Call who back?" the man asked. "The fish." "What fish?" A daughter calls her mother and says, "I'm divorcing Nathan. All he wants is sex, sex and more sex. My vagina is now the size of a 50-cent piece, when it used to be the size of a 5-cent piece." Her mother says, "You are married to a multimillionaire. You live in a mansion. You drive a Ferrari. You get all the money. You take 6 vacations a year, and you want to throw all that away for 45 cents? A woman's husband had been in and out of a coma for months, but she never left his side. Day after day, she sat by his bed, holding his hand, her love and hope never fading. One afternoon, to her amazement, his eyes fluttered open. Slowly, he looked around the room, then motioned for her to come closer. Her heart raced with joy as she leaned in, tears welling in her eyes. His voice was weak, but filled with emotion as he whispered, "You know something? You've been there for me through every tough moment in my life. When I lost my job, you were there to support me. When my business failed, you stayed by my side. When I got shot, you held my hand in the hospital. When we lost the house, you never left. And now, with my health failing, you're still here." Her eyes filled with tears. "Oh, darling," she whispered. "That's so sweet. What are you trying to say?" He took a deep breath, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "I think you're a bloody jinx." An Aussie trucker walks into an Outback cafe with a full-grown emu trailing behind him. The waitress greets them and asks for their orders. The trucker says, "I'll have a hamburger, chips, and a Coke." He turns to the emu. "What about you?" The emu replies, "Sounds good, I'll have the same." A short time later, the waitress returns with their order and says, "That'll be $9.40, please." The trucker reaches into his pocket, pulls out the exact change, and hands it over. The next day, the man and the emu return. "The usual?" asks the waitress. The trucker says, "Yep, a hamburger, chips, and a Coke." "Same for me," says the emu. Again, the trucker pulls out the exact change and pays. This continues every day until one Friday night when the trucker walks in and says, "I'll have a steak, baked potato, and a salad." The emu says, "Same for me." Shortly after, the waitress brings their order and says, "That'll be $32.62. The trucker reaches into his pocket and hands over the exact change, as usual. Curious, the waitress asks, "Excuse me, mate, but how do you always manage to pull the exact change out of your pocket every single time?" The trucker smiles and says, "Well, love, a few years ago, I was cleaning out the shed and found an old lamp. When I cleaned it, a genie appeared and offered me 2 wishes. My first wish was that if I ever needed to pay for anything, I could just put my hand in my pocket, and the exact amount of money would always be there." "That's brilliant," says the waitress. "Most people would ask for $1 million, but you'll always have exactly what you need for the rest of your life." "That's right," says the trucker. "Whether it's a gallon of milk or a Rolls Royce, the right amount of money is always there." Still curious, the waitress asks, "Then what's with the emu?" The trucker sighs and replies, "Well, my second wish was for a tall chick with a big rump and long legs who agrees with everything I say." A poor old woman, facing eviction, was forced to sell her valuables. As she rummaged through her dusty belongings, she came across a dull copper kettle. Intrigued by its possible value, she dusted it off, and bam! A genie erupted from its neck. The genie said, "I've seen your struggles, and I will grant you 3 wishes." The woman, astonished, thought for a moment and said, "Age has taken its toll on me. I wish to be young and beautiful once more." Bam! In an instant, the old woman transformed into a ravishing young lady. Thrilled by her newfound beauty, she declared, "Genie, I want to live a life of grandeur. I want to be rich." Bam! The room swirled and shifted, turning her humble cottage into a magnificent mansion. She looked down and saw her worn clothing replaced with a stunning dress and shining heels. As she marveled at the transformation, the genie stood solemnly and said, "You have 1 wish left." The woman paused and then felt a brush against her leg. It was her old cat, frightened by the sudden change in surroundings. She looked up at the genie and said, "This cat has been with me through everything. Please turn him into a man so we can spend many happy days together." Bam! In a blinding flash, the cat vanished, and standing in his place was a tall, dark-haired, handsome young man. Immediately enamored, the woman fell into his arms. The genie, his work done, disappeared. As she gazed lovingly into the young man's eyes, he whispered, "I bet you wish you hadn't had me fixed." A CEO tells his secretary, "Next week, we're going to a convention abroad for some quality time together. Please make all the necessary arrangements." The secretary, calling her husband, "Next week, the boss is taking me abroad for business, so take care of yourself while I'm away." The husband, calling his lover, "My wife's going abroad next week. Let's spend it together." The lover, a private school teacher, tells her students, "Due to personal reasons, I'll be staying home next week. You'll be studying on your own." One of the students runs to his grandfather. "Grandpa, I don't have school next week. You promised we'd go to the mountains." The grandfather, who happens to be the CEO, calls his secretary. "My grandson wants to spend the week with me. We're not going abroad after all." The secretary calls her husband. "The boss cancelled, so we'll be spending the week together." The husband calls his lover. "We can't spend the week together. My wife is staying home." The lover calls the students. "My problem's been resolved, so school is back on." The student runs to his grandfather. "Sorry, Grandpa, school's back on. I can't go to the mountains anymore." The CEO calls his secretary. My grandson can't go on the trip, so book the flight again. The secretary calls her husband. And it loops again and again, all because of one little miscommunication. Margaret was devastated after the passing of her husband, Albert. She went to the undertaker's to say her final goodbye. The moment she saw him, she started to cry uncontrollably. One of the undertakers came over to comfort her. Through her tears, she explained that she was upset because Albert was dressed in a black suit, and it had been his dying wish to be buried in a blue suit. The undertaker apologized and explained that traditionally, they always dressed bodies in black suits, but he would do his best to honor the request. The next day, Margaret returned to the undertaker's before the funeral. When the undertaker pulled back the curtain, she smiled through her tears. Albert was now dressed in a sharp, blue suit. "Wonderful, wonderful!" she exclaimed. "But where on earth did you get that beautiful blue suit?" The undertaker replied. "Well, yesterday afternoon, after you left, a man about your husband's size was brought in. He was wearing a blue suit. His wife was very upset, as he had always wanted to be buried in a black suit." Margaret gave a relieved smile. The undertaker continued. "It was then just a matter of swapping the heads." A man was driving when he approached a yellow light. He did the right thing and stopped at the crosswalk, even though he could have made it through before it turned red. Behind him, a woman was tailgating, furious that she'd missed her chance to get through the intersection. She honked her horn and screamed in frustration, dropping her cell phone and makeup in the process. Still ranting, she suddenly heard a tap on her window. She looked up to see a serious-looking police officer. "Step out of the vehicle with your hands up," he ordered. Confused and upset, she was taken to the station, where she was searched, fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in a holding cell. A couple of hours later, the officer who arrested her came to the cell, apologizing. "I'm really sorry for the mix-up," he said. "But when I saw you blowing your horn, flipping off the guy in front of you, and cursing him out, I noticed your 'What would Jesus do?' bumper sticker, choose life license plate holder, follow me to Sunday school sticker, and the chrome-plated Christian fish emblem on your car. Naturally, I assumed you'd stolen it." An elderly Florida lady did her shopping and, upon returning to her car, saw 4 men trying to steal it. Without hesitation, she dropped her shopping bags, pulled out her handgun, and screamed at the top of her lungs. "I have a gun, and I know how to use it. Get out of the car!" The men, terrified, immediately jumped out and ran off. Still shaken, she began to load her shopping bags into the back of the car, but when she tried to start the engine, she couldn't get the key into the ignition. After several failed attempts, she realized what was wrong. She looked around and saw a football, a frisbee, and 2 12-packs of beer in the front seat, things she definitely hadn't bought. Confused, she glanced around and noticed her own car parked a few spaces down. She loaded her bags into the correct car and drove to the police station to report the mix-up. The sergeant listened to her story, trying not to laugh. He pointed across the room to 4 pale-faced men who were reporting a carjacking, describing an elderly woman, white, under 5 feet tall, with glasses and curly white hair, and carrying a large handgun. No charges were filed. A man had been searching high and low for his new hat for days. Frustrated by his failed attempts to find it, he devised a plan. This Sunday, he would attend church, sit at the back, and sneak out during the service to grab a hat from the rack by the front door. When Sunday arrived, he sat quietly in the pew, waiting for the right moment. The minister began the sermon, and the man listened intently. The topic of the day was the 10 Commandments. As the sermon progressed, the man remained in his seat, despite his original plan to sneak out and grab the hat. He felt a strange sense of peace as he listened to the words. When the sermon came to an end, the man approached the minister. "Father, I must confess something," he began. "I came here today with the intention of stealing a hat to replace the one I lost. But after hearing your sermon on the 10 Commandments, I've had a change of heart." The minister, touched by the man's honesty, smiled and said, "Bless you, my son. Was it when I preached on thou shalt not steal that you decided to reconsider? The man shook his head and grinned. No, father. It wasn't the stealing part that changed my mind. It was when you started talking about adultery. That's when I remembered exactly where I left my hat. A man was working at a scrapyard during his summer vacation from engineering university. One afternoon, he was busy taking apart a large piling hammer. The hammer was held together with some hefty bolts, and one of the nuts had become corroded and stuck. In an effort to free it, he started heating the nut with an oxyacetylene torch. As he was focused on his task, one of the dimmest apprentices, Banta, walked by. Curious, he asked, "What are you doing?" The man patiently explained. "I'm heating the nut. When it gets hot, it expands and becomes larger, which will release its grip on the bolt so I can remove it." Banta's eyes lit up as he absorbed the information. "So things get larger when they get hot, do they?" he asked. A light bulb went off in his head. "Ah, I get it now," Banta said proudly. "That's why days are longer in summer and shorter in winter." There was a long pause as the man stared at Banta, who looked incredibly pleased with his newfound discovery. Finally, Banta grinned and said, "You know, I always wondered about that."